All right. Hello, everybody. Back on my YouTube channel, Moritz Bierling. Today, I'm here with Akira Wakabayashi. I hope I'm pronouncing that somewhat correctly. And then Tatsuya Sato.
Yeah.
And these two guys here are working on a really cool project called Kizuna that I recently did a Twitter thread about. That's basically a messaging application using one of my favorite technology projects out there, for which I've been an advocate for a long time, Holochain, and for which I'm currently actually trying to learn Rust just a little bit, that programming language, knowing that I want to participate in some programming projects on that in a while as well. But yeah, why don't you guys briefly introduce yourself, and then we can get right into Kizuna and what you guys are doing with it right now.
Cool.
All right. Yeah. Should I start?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm Tatsuya Sato, as Moritz mentioned. But actually, first of all, thank you for having us here, Moritz, and we really appreciate it. And we're really excited to talk about a lot of things. So yeah. Anyway, so my name is Tatsuya, but you can just call me. I mean, people call me Tat, so cool. I go with Tats, and I'm from Tokyo, Japan. I used to live I grew up in the Philippines, but I moved here like almost 3 years ago. And yeah, I mainly, so I'm working with Akira and Nico, Neil, and the two other directors here in Japan on a project called Kizuna, messaging application. And I mainly architect the designs that we need for the application. I also do other small things like, contributing to the open source community of Holochain, which we can talk about later, definitely. I do some translation on the documents that Holochain releases, blogs they releases for the Japanese audience as well. And yeah, so if you see those Japanese stuff about Holochain, that's probably me. And yeah, we can I guess dive deep into what I do, but that's cool. Basically
That's a good intro. Yeah, thanks. Akira?
Yeah. Hi. Thank you also, Moritz, for having us here. It's such a pleasure, and it's nice to connect with you. My name is Akira, just like Moritz said, and I am from the Philippines. I run an app development startup here in the Philippines, and we're working with Holochain Institute of Japan, which was established earlier this year to create Kizuna. And I work mainly on the community side and the marketing side of our brand. And yeah, I'm just here excited also to talk about, just stuff, like general stuff. Really, I don't even know what we're here to talk about with Moritz, but just really excited to kind of talk about stuff. Yeah, so really glad to be.
Great. I think what I'm very curious about is like, why a messaging application? Why is that something to pick as like your flag to plant on a hill and like say this is what we're gonna die on, this is what we're gonna like try to make? Like, why is that the thing that you picked?
Well, in all honesty, I mean, from at least from the technical point of view, I mean, Holochain is an amazing framework that can be applied into many industries out there, right? It's not just about digital communication or social media applications, right? A lot of projects like Redgrid are doing energy stuff, and Sid on, again, I guess Sacred Capital is doing reputation economy.
Right.
But for us, so just a little bit of backstory, which is we met Holochain probably like 2 years ago already, right, Akira? 2 years ago, I think. Yeah, it's probably 2 years ago. Yeah. So one of my friends introduced me to Eric Bear from Holo team. And so we talked, and I was already very, very interested with blockchain already at that time. And so I started to learn more about the technology, and really we were like, Akira and I have been working even before then on developing some applications, getting some outsourcing projects and whatnot. But we really wanted to kind of like test out an application that is heavily used by people, in day-to-day basis. And
everybody chats.
Yeah, everybody chats, and it's something that we always use. And it's kind of like one of those low-hanging fruits as well, right? In the Holochain land, it's like not much applications, or actually no application are out there yet as a production level application. And so we were just excited to kind of like build something that people could actually try to use. And the more we learn about it, the more we learn about the world of messaging, it became more clear that Holochain can offer something that other application, at least the architecture that other applications has, cannot, or probably is very difficult to do so, at least in a native level. And so that, like, looking at the people behind data instead of the data itself kind of thinking model is very interesting when you apply it to things like messaging applications. And so it started with a not so like, oh yeah, and sorry, coincidentally, one more thing is that in Japan, there's only a handful of messaging applications out there. Like, we probably only use Line, which is it's a messaging application developed by a company in Korea, and then maybe Facebook Messenger and whatnot. And so, but there's been a lot of identity theft and targeted ads in this Line chat application that, to us, well, I've personally experienced it, which we can talk about later. But I like combining all those reasons, we felt like we're equipped with the knowledge to solve it, and we're also passionate to solve about this problem, especially with the recent documentaries, addressing a lot of the digital social media applications concerns that we today have.
Right.
Yeah, so combining all those reasons, we thought this would be the first applications we can try on Holochain. But it doesn't mean like it has to end with messaging applications, right? Like,
right.
I mean, there's so many things. Like one of our visions really is like a lot of companies and organizations trying Holochain in Japan, and so we felt like, okay, if people also see that, oh, there's a messaging application being built on Holochain, then that might spark other people's interest. Okay, what else can we build on Holochain?
Right.
So
it's so much used that I assume it would be a huge door opener for people to see, okay, something as commonly used as this, if this can work, and if this can work in a way where you actually have advantages that no other application can provide, then I guess what else can we do with this? Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's actually something that I'm very curious about, because when I read through the Kickstarter page for Kizuna, I was like, I've never heard of some of these kinds of features. Like I have never even thought about that could be a thing. Like, how did you guys come up with, okay, this would be an interesting feature? Because you just said something interesting. You said like we designed or thought about the user rather than like the protocol or the application itself. So
yeah, so at least so there are some features that allow that is enabled by Holochain, at least like on a native land, like up down to the very low level things that is happening on Holochain is like it is true to at least what we are saying that we can do in the future. So for example, like we named it like the spy-proof group messaging, and obviously like this has to be taken with a grain of salt, right? Because this is still in a trial basis, and we haven't really seen what kind of implications it has out there in the real world.
Right.
But at least architecturally and theoretically, and looking at the code itself again, also tells us that we can allow in Holochain different networks to exist. And basically, a network is just a group of real person using a device, connected with each other. Right. It doesn't have to be hosted into somewhere else. It can just completely be just your devices connected together, which forms a network. And so, if we do this, even actually in a cloud environment, right, where your data is not located in your device but somewhere else, like Holo with Holochain allows us to create like separate networks for each individuals who wishes to form that network. And you can actually verify when you're trying to talk to someone in that group whether this person really supposed to be here or not. right? Because in
Right.
Holochain, natively, you have to have what we call a proof, a membrane proof is I think what we name it, but it's basically a ticket to enter this network, and
Right.
anyone can see that.
Right.
And if they see that, okay, you're not supposed to be here because no one gave you the ticket to be here, then we can be sure that you're only conversing with the people you really wish to do so.
Right.
Yeah, and in a traditional application, usually, even if your messages are stored on your local device, it usually goes through a server,
Right.
right? And that server has to be trusted,
Right.
because that server does a lot of things for you.
Right.
Maybe storing your messages, because Bob is offline, so I need to store. The server has to store the messages until
Right.
Bob comes back online, and all those things.
Right.
And you have to trust them that
Right.
they will always do the right thing. And at least in Holochain natively, we remove that part of trust, and it allows you to directly trust the person you're talking to.
Right. Right.
In Holo, this is something again interesting, because it is still a computer where you store your data remotely, right? So
Right.
you still have to trust it.
Right.
But at least you're not trusting a single large group of servers that is owned by a company.
Right.
It is a distributed cloud, means that your data is stored on someone's holoport or computer, because you say computer,
Right.
and it's not like clumped up together with everybody else's data,
Right.
which makes it a honeypot
Right.
for any hackers to attack it, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what we see every day, almost every day. This company getting hacked, this company, this
Right.
company. So
It,
yeah,
it
there's a lot of
feels
things
like
that is very exciting.
it kind of feels like it's what Holochain natively, and then I guess also your additional architectural design of the application, from what I can tell, does is it radically multiplies the attack surface. And reduces the attack surface by multiplying like the complexity or the friction of somebody trying to enter a space that they're not supposed to be in, right? Because otherwise, in a regular server environment, you only need to be able to maybe socially engineer the admin, or to get some kind of phishing email in, or whatever it may be. And then when you have that access through that one device, you have this sort of top level view into everything that's happening there. But if you get access to like somebody else's Kizuna messaging application through their credentials, it doesn't give you any access to anybody else, because there's no central server to like store those things or to unencrypt things, because everything is sort of encrypted based on the specifics according to the person who's using it, rather than some like top level design. Interesting.
Yeah, that's actually really interesting what you said. It's very contextualized to the person who is using the application, right? Just like you said, no one else can access your data unless you know the things that makes up the key to your data,
right?
And that person, I mean, unless you share it to someone else verbally or whatever, like it only stays in you, or at least in your brain.
Right.
Yeah, and that's right. Like, actually, that's a really interesting point of view that you mentioned about people getting socially engineered to give access to certain things, because this kind of centralized architecture is really like natively architected for someone like an admin to access the server all the time, right?
Right. It's fresh in my mind right now, because I've been listening to this podcast called Darknet Diaries, which basically goes through all of these like social engineering, but also penetration testing and viruses and malware and all this different stuff, and explains how that happens, talks to people in the industry. And so it's really like present in my mind. And like Holochain seems like something where you don't really necessarily think about it in terms of security. You think of it more in terms of like resilience and like people being able to coordinate. And that's sort of the big pitch, but the security aspects are actually very interesting, because you're making it so distributed. Sort of like how in our body, there's not really one cell that you can hack and then you can like steer the entire body, right? Like you would have to infect every single cell so that cell then mutates, sort of like how a cancer does it, right?
Yeah. That's right. Actually, that's pretty interesting what you said. Yeah. I guess there is that kind of, I guess there will be a psychological, at least, like you disincentivize people to hack the system, right? Just like you said, because like the example that Akira and I use all the time when we try to explain it to our friends and our families and whatnot is that imagine you build a house, right? And you have some treasures in there. You don't want to keep all your treasures in there. So what
Right.
we do is we build many houses,
Right.
with the keys being as hard to break as just keeping it in one house.
Right.
But the thing that you can get from that house is diminishingly, I mean, like, is like really, really small compared to putting everything in one place.
Right.
So that's a very easy way for people to understand that, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like, there's no perfect security that blocks all the attacks, right? There is, just like our body, just like what you mentioned, like we get sick and whatnot, but we have that mechanism to repair ourselves and heal ourselves also. Just like what Holochain allows the applications that is being built on top of it to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So Akira, what are you like most excited about here? Like, what drew you into participating in working on this?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. For me, it was about the founding kind of values that we had for Kizuna, because we were building on top of a still developing technology, Holochain and Holo, and so that makes it a bit more challenging than say compared to building something centralized, right?
Right.
But then at the same time, I was super excited about the open source nature, and as I got into the community, there's an energy in the ecosystem where you can feel people's kind of voluntary spirit to contribute into something that everyone thinks would be impactful one day. And also because we started Kizuna with this kind of belief that conversations, Kizuna, by the way, is a Japanese word. It means the deep bond that we share among
Right.
ourselves, on one another. And for me, my angle in this was that I agree with our principle here that these bond that we share with one another, it should never be capitalized on.
Right.
And these centralized authorities, these giant tech corporations, they are trying to gather and analyze and sell our data to advertisers in order to make a profit. And
Right.
to me, that was no good for me. And
Right.
I think that's where I'm coming from the most. I mean, I as a community person, I'm not really like into the tech side.
Right.
Like I try to understand to the best of my abilities when
Right.
Tats explains to me,
Right.
all this stuff. But what really got me in this was that we kind of embarked on this mission to kind of protect people's conversations. And I think that's like something very nice to me. I always strive to do things that are impactful through technologies, right? And that's kind of like my game, and that's what keeps me going as well for Kizuna.
Right. Cool. And working with the Holochain community, you said like it's very pleasurable. Like, who are you like working with, and how is that experience of like going into a sort of very international space where there's lots of different time zones, people are working on different things, and you're trying to build something. Like, are you already trusting that you'll get sort of support along the way from people who are not even part of your organization to do this, or is it like more like it's like mutually supporting each other, even learning about it? Like, what is that like working with?
You want to go, Akira, or you want?
Yeah, sure.
Go.
Well, for me, from my experience, what I can speak about it is that first, it's like my body clock has been kind of adjusted a bit because I had to, like, coming from Asia, when we have these meetings, events, the dev camps and all, because Tats and I actually helped organize that.
Right.
The seventh dev camp, that is, our body clocks adjust a bit. Like we were like the time is like late at night for us because we had to cater also to the US, right? The US members.
Same here.
Right.
Yeah,
but I think Asia's like
even worse.
Yeah, even worse. Yeah, right. So, but then it like there's this, like, to me, I can speak about probably the energy it attracts me. Like I'm kind of magnetized to that energy because I can just see people working. And yeah, we're getting support in a lot of ways also on the community side, learning from the people who have already done it. So yeah, I speak to them almost on a daily basis, and I have to be up by like 2 a.m. because some members are up at like really early morning there. So yeah, it was really helpful, and also for me, it's one of the things that keeps us really going. I think Tats can speak about the you know on the coding part. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because I'm wondering,
Yeah.
like, Holochain
Mhm.
is still relatively immature. Like, it's very hard to plan with something where you don't know on what timeline what will work, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's really true. I mean, I guess like at least on the tech side, it's like most of our are pretty kind of like used to the uncertainties that comes along with building something in a distributed nature, right?
Right.
I think almost all of us. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, obviously, but at least I enjoy the process and like
Right.
trying to like navigate this uncharted land where there's no formally built road together. So that's definitely something very interesting, and
Right.
I think that's also like we've got a few questions on the AMA as well, like why is our app dated, you know, to be released to 2022? That's like 2 years from now, and whatnot. And for us, it's just like I guess we are trying to estimate the which really sounds weird, but like we're trying to estimate the unknown parts of the things
Right.
and like
Right.
kind of like roughly guess. Okay, yeah. So basically, there's that part, but then just like one of the community members said, we can always release the app in small parts. But anyway, sorry, I derailed
That's
a bit.
interesting.
Yeah, but
That's
just
very
going back,
interesting.
yeah, and like it really allows us to do that because again, like working with the community of Holochain. Well, the thing is, I haven't really worked with any other communities in
Right.
terms of
Right.
development, so I can't really say it's
Right.
different in this way.
Right.
But to me, the experience is like amazing. It's
Right.
it's super like I feel like sometimes we or at least I appreciate the fact that I get to talk to people from the Europe, from US,
Right.
people maybe I never would have met unless I
Right.
you know
Right.
went with Holochain. And
Right.
also with this whole like Holochain, I think is innately or natively can be modularized a lot,
Hmm.
meaning you can build small Lego blocks
Right.
that other applications. It doesn't have to be a Holochain application even.
Right.
Like you just have to build the interface to connect to it,
Right.
and it becomes like it's not just about a module in the UI or something. Like it has the whole stack of functionalities and data validation, storage, and whatnot built into that particular module.
Right.
And one of our friends, Guillaume Cordova, is really good at this, and he's really pushing for it. Is you can just plug in modules with the front end in it, with the data layer and everything, and you can make
Right.
an application with it. So whenever we work with Kizuna and we see something that can be like a standalone module,
Right.
because Kizuna itself is an open sourced
Right.
project,
Right.
right? And we try to make it as modularized as possible as well, so that things like messaging between two people, right, can be modularized into some other applications.
Right.
Maybe Redgrid needs it, maybe Junto needs it, maybe
Right.
I don't know, someone else who wants
Right.
to try Holochain needs it,
Right.
and they can just plug it in. And so we have this GitHub repository called Holochain Open Dev Community, and we put everything that we think is useful for everyone.
Right.
And so there's so many, like, I know Holochain is still very much a, what do you call this, nascent technology, right? But the amount of things that is out there in the open,
Right.
is so much that people can just jump in and really like read those codes and how Holochain code project is even built and whatnot.
Right.
So yeah, it's really on a human level, everyone is so open. If they think it can help others, they do so.
Right.
And there's this also spirit of like doing everything voluntarily, right? Like
Right.
so that is something really fresh to me. Like
Right.
um
You just
yeah,
spoke to this sort of process or this way of developing where you can have modules that can do different things. You share those. And I've been wondering about this for a while as well with respect to regular companies that already have existing applications that are working. They have an existing customer base. And is that also how you would see, or how you would tell somebody else if they were to ask like how to start to get into Holochain? Because I've heard that people are like saying, hey, why don't we take like a small part of the application, either something we haven't yet built or something that's already there, but that is maybe a bit more sensitive, and we try out how to build that in Holochain, and then sort of a small part of that becomes decentralized, distributed, whatever. And I could even imagine in Kizuna, if you're building the application, but of course things take time, they need to be tested, you need to figure out how they work in the actuality rather just in theory. It could even be possible to sort of visually in the interface, if the application is working in some way, mark parts of the application as like, this is like a testing, or like an unfinished, unsecure like way of working with it, but you can try we're playing with it, right?
Yeah. To answer your first question, I think it is definitely possible to integrate a holochain, like any holochain layer, into an existing centralized, or I don't know, maybe decentralized application, right? One of the most probably used tools, at least based on the people that I've worked with, in Holochain, like we use the Graphql on the front end side, which is a tool that allows us to create schema, which is like a definition of all the data that we want to work with. And we create a method, which we call a resolver, to kind of tell the program, okay, for this field, like if there's a data person, there's a field name, you can tell the GraphQL that, okay, for name, you fetch it from here, right? So for example, if you want to do a file storage kind of like applications, like, and you only want to store the binary data of the files in a centralized place, but keep the metadata locally in a private place, right? Then you can combine storing files, chunks of data of files in a, it doesn't even have to be in a centralized place. It can also be IPFS or something like that, something not Holochain. And then you can just like use Holochain to save the metadata of your files so that you know where to retrieve it and whatnot. So yeah, in that sense, it's definitely possible. And I think it's not just like Holochain to Holochain, but to Holochain to other apps. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. And sorry, what was the second question again? I kind of forgot.
I could imagine that if Kizuna has like a relatively far away release date, but of course along the way you will be working on parts of it, and parts might be ready, but while others might not be, it could be interesting to sort of work with the user base that does support the project, and sort of giving them access to early versions of new features, but like clearly marking them as not being finished yet, right?
We can. I think there is a lot of possibility with that.
Like I'm not advocating for necessarily doing that, but I'm like thinking through like how does a company that is charting a new like sort of working with a new technology that isn't really well explored, and where the users themselves might not all be technical, understand what the actual implications are of how they act, give them the feeling that this is something cool, we want to use this, but we also know that we're not like fully protected as to the promise of the application overall, right?
Yes, yeah. I think that is definitely possible. I've not yet seen someone doing that, but you can always do set up certain number of test holoports to kind of work on a testing feature that people could access, and then checks if it does work or not. And that kind of level of flexibility is also, I think, possible with Holochain. So that's also
is that something that you're planning on doing with some supporters, perhaps, of your Kickstarter application, Kickstarter campaign?
Well, yeah, we are planning to do a closed alpha within next year. So that is something that is very accessible. That is something accessible by the people who contributed to our campaign.
Right.
I think it was in one of the ranges. I forgot which particular reward it was.
I'll check that out in a second.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, so we have that, and then we test it out how it works out, and then we do open alpha, and we add features bit by bit. Then hopefully we can get to open beta where everybody could use it.
Right. Right.
So yeah.
Cool. Well, let's take a look at the Kickstarter page just before we close, and
Thank you.
make it interesting for our audience to check it out. So this is the Kickstarter page. I already scrolled through it a bunch. I already myself contributed. I think which level did I pick? I think like was the $50 thing.
Thank you.
I was very excited about reserving my special username.
For sure, yeah.
You'll be the first Moritz there.
Yes,
it's not going to be taken by any Moritz.
There we go. I'm a backer. Yeah, yen 5,430. There we go. I remember actually on the Holo Kickstarter campaign or Indiegogo, I think it was. I was number one. Like I was waiting, like on the day, like okay, when does it go live? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be the one.
Wow.
Wow, that's great, man.
Wow, so you've known Holochain for quite a while as well.
Yes. I actually heard of the mother project Scepter Metacurrency like in 2014, and I actually jumped on some kind of call with Eric and Fernanda and so on, and then tracked it. And then when it became its own project, it spun out. I think in like late 2016, early 2017. That's when I started to write about it on Facebook and like promote the technology and sort of have just general conversations, because back then it was just known among the people who already were part of that group. And then, it was fun.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how it's becoming, and how all the ecosystem is growing richer and experience is getting more and more awesome with it. Yeah.
Right. So tell my audience why people should support Kizuna and what exciting things you have planned for the people that do.
Cool. Yeah. To everyone listening right now, first we would like to invite you all to come participate, join us in our mission to protect your conversations. And we're building an awesome new next generation messaging application written on Holochain. And we have some exciting stuff ahead of us. We're trying to build our community right now, and we'd love for Moritz audience here to come join us as well. I think it's going to be interesting, really interesting next couple of months for us. And let's just be part of this project. We're looking forward to the future with everyone here. So any amount would definitely be appreciated, and it would help us, kind of bring Kizuna, it would help our team create Kizuna, and that would make it closer to reality. So, thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm excited. Good.
That's perfect.
I'm excited as well about it because.
Sorry, Moritz?
Yeah. Can you hear me now again?
Oh, I think your voice is choppy, or is it just on me?
It's pretty choppy, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It
could be the video. Might be. I'm not sure.
How about now? Can you hear me?
There you go.
Hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Video's a bit laggy though.
Okay, well then we'll close it out. But I was just gonna say that I'm very excited about this as well, because I was recently kicked off of Facebook, of Instagram, and of Messenger, all at the same time with no reason given, no warning, and no recourse. And so, like, for me, it's very present. Like, okay, my entire social network that I had been building up for like years and years is gone. Wow. Like, I don't have those contacts. I don't have anything from them. All my content that I produced over that time is gone. And so for me, it's really important that Holochain is not just something interesting. It's something that actually matters to me on a personal level. And so Kizuna, to me, feels like a good choice as something where I can work in it and trust that even if the application or the organization goes away, my data will still be there, right? And that's why I'm backing it, and that's why I'm interested. So if my audience is interested in that kind of resilience and sort of security and owning your own data, then I recommend either getting in touch with me or with our cool team here, and then backing the project.
Yeah, that's a great story, Moritz. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I guess we are just so used to having it all the time that we're not really thinking about when we lose
Right.
it. But
Right.
in Holochain, you don't even have to think about it because you already own it, right? So,
Right. Right. Yeah.
hopefully. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
It really gave me a kick in the ass to like, okay, let's do this thing with Holochain and not not wait around for it, right?
Yeah, for sure.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. Well, thank you for joining me on the channel, and good luck with Kizuna. I'll definitely talk some more about it on Twitter. I'll link the thread that I made about it down in the description below if you want to check that out. And yeah, let's do this thing. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Thank
My
you for
pleasure.
having us.
Ciao, ciao.